Today I am taking a look at Power Grid, the stock company's expansion. Now, the actual box hasn't really got anything exciting on it to tell you it's a lovely expansion. So I've just got the rule book here. Now, this game is all about elevating the original game. So if you want to see what this can bring, is it worth getting to the table for you and your group? Maybe you love Power Grid, maybe you don't, and you want to make something a little bit more different with the original game. That's what this video is about today. Welcome all to the channel. My name's Craig, and yes, today I'm diving into the stock company's expansion. And basically, Power Grid is a game I've played many years ago, really enjoyed, kind of went off a little bit. It felt like the race for the end was a little bit drab sometimes, in the sense of, right, you've maybe got more of these little houses to power, but I can't quite meet that. And it's a slow, methodical, edge to the end, and maybe you're completely out of it and someone else has just made those profits throughout the game, and you're like, I can't really catch up. And it got to a point, I tried different maps, the Great Britain map, I tried obviously the base one with Germany and USA, and I was like, I'm done with this. But 2015, this expansion came out, and it plays with all the usual player counts, and it can be bolted on to the newer version, the recharge type version with the new artwork, and the older version as well. And I've only just got this in the last year or two, and I've had a lot of fun with it. And it's really nice that it can bolt onto all of the maps. And you can see here, I've got the Japan map, which is one of my faves. You've got Russia on the back as well. Just something a little bit different. And now I tend to play 2 players, which normally in a big old stock company's game, stocks and shares, doesn't typically work. But because it's got the backbone of Power Grid in this, and you're getting the resources and you're auctioning off here and you're bidding on this, I think it works. Now, it works even better at a higher player count, and that's where this game is built for. I think if you've got the chance to play with 3-4 players, absolutely do so. I haven't tried with the higher player counts. And if you're playing with up to 6, you can introduce the purple color. But it's nice and refreshing that you can use all the areas, so you're not hindered by certain locations, as in some of the base game where you have to stick to some of the color zones. Here, all the zones are open. So I'm not going to go through what Power Grid is and how you play it. If you're here, there's plenty of videos already out there. I think I've even done one back in the day. But what does stock companies add then? So there's a really nice summary sheet. I don't quite know if that'll focus in, but on the Geek, someone's made a bit of an overview, which is excellent and very much needed, because this draws a line between your 18xx type games and Power Grid. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, which is why I wanted to bring this to you guys, because I'm delving into the 18xx genre and it's super. I love the niggling and the back and forth with the money, and how you're being ruthless sometimes, and the development of this board. And say for example, Chesapeake is one I've played probably the most, and it's fascinating. But equally, it is damn hard getting that to the table, because people look at a train game and they're like, even though these are hardcore gamers who've played many heavy games in, Euros and what have you, they're just not that enamored by sitting there for several hours, 3-4 hours typically, and just bartering over share companies and trains. Whereas this game, it's familiar, it's Power Grid, and it's got that sort of resource management. You've got the auctioning, which is very much the flavor of an 18xx, but it brings to you here that process of developing your company, you're managing it. And it's a little bit more than, say Chesapeake, where on any 18xx, there's a lot more variety there than there used to be. But in the sense of, you're running your network, you're running your train, you're getting the most revenue, and you're making those calculated decisions over, am I going to pay the dividends out and which train roster am I using? Whereas here, you feel like you're actually running the company in the sense of, right, I need to get the resources to power this factory. I then need to build these houses out there, develop this network, and there's more flexibility as well. You can be a little bit pushed out of certain areas in typical 18xx games, and that's the fun of it, that's the point of it. It's a heavier weight game, but this, I think, is a really nice bridge into that genre, a bit more forgiving. And you've got, obviously when you get to step 2 and 3 here, you've got different areas you can actually approach. So For me, I think this is a really good start into that genre. Now, what exactly is happening in stock companies here? Well, the first thing is you'll notice this extra board here, which is all about adding the stock companies you may decide to direct. And that's the difference here. You're not running just one company and trying to power as efficiently as you can and energize this areas across whatever map you're choosing. You're dipping in and out of these companies, and you can see you've got a host of colors here. So maybe you decide to go and invest in the green one. Now you will take sort of ownership of that. I'll leave these here. I can't quite fit everything in camera view, but you'll take ownership of that company and you'll have shares in them. And the difference here is you have your own private stash of shares and private money, but equally you're running these companies, and you can have multiple. You could be several different companies at once, and they've all got these shares. There's 10 shares. One of them has a little 2 on there, which is the first share you'll buy to show ownership. And you can see it sort of reminding there the cost. So that's the one you'll initially set up. So I've kind of waffled on a little bit here. I've got a bit excited telling you, how I like the game, but how's it going to play then? So this summary is excellent, and it basically, you start off with a share round. So the starting player, pick anyone at random, and you're going to be either trading, passing, or quitting. So if you're trading, then you can buy 1 share and or sell as many shares as you want. But obviously in the first round, you don't own anything. So on the second share round, you'll be potentially selling. So what you're going to be trading then, you're going to buy a share in one of these companies, and it's going to be a number 2. So you've got all the shares here in all the different colours. Now, the actual cost, you can see the colours, the starting of these companies is here. So you want to buy into the red company, you're going to buy 2 shares at a value of 30 each. You're then going to pop down one of their tokens to show that is in play. And now you can buy shares, and that other players can buy shares. And that's the good thing about this game. Everyone can just open up a company anytime. There's no like private companies, and you can only get into this at certain points. You just, whatever you want, yeah, boom, you're in. So you've set up a company. Let's say we've done reds. You've taken this one, you've popped it in front of you. You've got all the red shares stacked here. You've taken the 2 in front of you in your private stash. And any money goes to the bank first, and then they pay the actual company the value above here. And the reason for that is because later on in the game, as the share price goes up, say it's at 50, you pay 50 to the bank, and then the bank is getting 30, which is very different here. And it's almost putting a bit of control on it, so things aren't escalating and it's not getting too ruthless over how much money's going in, and then you can tank it and all this lot. So there's a bit of rigidity as to what payments are going into here. Now you've got 3 spots at the top. You can put your usual, we've got factories you're going to be bidding on, so you can have it to 3. You can kick them out as well. Once you've won a 4th, you can kick one of these other ones out. And that's kind of what the player boards are. Very simple, very streamlined, but they work. Now, as you go through the game, you can buy a share. It then goes round so someone else can buy a share. Maybe you want to set up a green company and do the same thing. Now, every time you set up a company, you're going to take one of your little house tokens here, and you're going to put it anywhere on the board. So I like this flexibility, because maybe your opponents have gone over here somewhere and you're like, right, I'm going to start up here. You pay that 10 initial bucks from your company's capital, and then off you go. You start building adjacent, you've got the network costs, and as you get into step 2 and 3, you can build on those other areas as well. So more flexibility. So that's setting up your company. Now in round 2 of the share round, you can sell shares. You can sell as many as you want. So you've got the buying of 1, next player goes, and you can sell as well. Keeps going round. And when you sell shares, then you can sell, say, 3 shares at once. But when you do a transaction, you're actually going to be knocking the price down of that company. So are you going to sell out quickly a load of shares, but it goes down 1 notch here, 10 electros? Or are you going to then sell another lot, and it goes down another 10, and then you sell another 10 on when it comes back around? So you can really impact the share price of a company, which is devastating for others. But there's that open information. Now every other player can see that you're selling. They're like, right, do I need to start selling as well? So I really enjoy that. And that's common in most sort of stock market games there as well. So that's selling. If you want to pass, boom, you can pass, and then you can come back into play whenever you want. So maybe you want to watch what your opponents do, but giving them that advantage will then mean they might sell out of something, and then you've got less money from that, etc. Or you can quit. Now, if you quit, you're going to get this card here, which means you're first in the next share round to do those dealings. So a lot of interplay, a lot of timing. It's not too long. There's only so many companies, and you're not sort of briefcasing companies and doing all sorts of devastating things. It's a bit tighter, a bit slower, but not in time frame, but just in terms of the activity you can do here. But it works, and it's a really nice addition, I find, having the private money and dipping in and out of these companies. And you can, if you push, get transition from your company, sell out, and it's suddenly someone else's problem. Now, in terms of how much enjoyment there is in that compared to 18xx, probably not as much, because they haven't lost out on much. You can't just sell as you would trains in 18xx and leave the company absolutely with nothing. You can spend all the money on the houses, and then they may be struggling to fund the resources there, but you can use your own private money for that. So that's one thing you can do. But generally, you can make a lot of money just by selling out your shares and then hoping they can't recover the price of that. But they've still got that infrastructure on the board with all their little houses to power up here. So that is a share round. So lots going on there. You'll then enter two business rounds initially, and you can see on the summary sheet, you're going to do a share round, two business rounds, and it keeps alternating then, share round, business round, etc. Now, what is a business round? So there, you're going to be following the normal steps as you would in a game of Power Grid. So you're going to determine turn order, and that's based on the lowest share value, and if you're hiding underneath someone, so yellow would be first, then green, then red, and obviously these are going to alternate and things are going to change. And yep, that determines turn order, and that is vital for all you guys who know Power Grid. That's going to determine next in the buying power plants. So you'll have your usual power plants faced out. You'll have the current market and the future market. So that's exactly the same, but these are going obviously into your company at the top here. So they're not yours, they're the company's. Obviously people might purchase more shares and take ownership of them. So yep, you're doing exactly the same there, and the money is coming from the capital of that company. Next, you're going to be buying the raw materials. So nothing new there. You've got all the raw materials here. And I should add that it does get a little bit confusing with, depending on what map you're using, there's already variations over how many resources there are, what cards are in play from the factories. And adding the stock company expansion has its own little tweaks. It'll say like remove 4 of this. After certain steps, you'll take 2 of the smallest ones, or per company that isn't in play, you will take one of the factories out as well, and then you put 2 under the bottom of the largest one. So it can get a little bit confusing as to what exactly you're supposed to be doing with the expansion, and then another different map and the different tweaks and rules. So just bear in mind, you have to kind of iron it out as to what exactly you are doing during the step 2 and 3 and the initial setup as well. So yeah, you're buying your raw materials. Those as normal are going onto your factories, and you're doing exactly the same as you would normally. Then you've got the building. And with the last player, you are then using the capital from that company to build out onto the board. And again, timing is crucial, because in bureaucracy, you aren't getting the sort of scaled down profits as you would normally. You're getting a fixed rate of $20, just standard. Even if you haven't done anything, you're getting $20, but then it's $10 per house you can power. And every buck counts, as it would in the normal game, because your company, if you are spending more on the auctioning, you're spending more to get houses up, but you then can't power them, you're just having to manage the finances, which then means if you've just blown it and overspent on things, you haven't got as much to maybe build the network you needed to, or get the resources you needed to then get that $10 per one in. And then you're not paying the dividends out, because you then maybe need that capital to go into your business. And that's what happens during bureaucracies. You have a choice. You'll work out how much money you've made from providing this energy, as I say, the 20 plus the 10 per thing. Then you have that choice. Are you going to pay that in dividends? And that is to all of the owners of these shares. So your opponent might have 40% of your company and you've got 50%. You're like, they're edging closer to me, but you're getting basically a tenth. So because there's only 10 shares in the game, so you pay out a tenth. Let's say you had 8 cities out there, you managed to power them all. That's 10 times the 8 is $80, plus the 20, which is just standard. That's $100 divided by the 10. So there's a bit of maths in this game, like, Power Grid is a very math game anyway. That's $10 per share. Are you going to keep $100 into your company? But you are going to reduce the share value of your company if you do so by 1. But if you do pay dividends, it's going to go up 1, which is super. You've increased the share price of all of your shares, which is your private stash here. But then you're paying dividends out, and that's great. You know, everyone's getting a bit more inflow to then buy more shares on future rounds and take the win, because that's how you're going to win the game, is the most money. You're going to sell your shares at the end for the value they are and see who the winner is. So yeah, that is a bureaucracy. You're then going to pretty much end the round as you would normally. Let me just check on here. There's nothing really different other than you are removing one power plant per unowned company. You are refilling the resources. You don't actually refill them after the first business round, because you've got the share round, you've got the 2 business rounds, you do wait there. So I'm not going to go through all the little finicky things, but there's a few little tweaks there. And then you just keep going. Now you're going to play out business round, share round, business round, share round, until eventually you're finished, and you'll pay out dividends on the last round and see who has the most money. Now, in terms of a few aspects to what make the whole share ownership interesting, is you've got a 50% holding. You can't go above 50%, which is a shame in some respects, because I think in a 2-player game, it'd be nice to do something like Chesapeake where you go to 60%. Because what I found in these games is typically you've got 50%, you're doing rather well, you've got the capital, well, the infrastructure out there, and you're earning these dividends, and your opponent's like, yeah, I'm just going to copy you in a 2-player game at least and just get 50%. You're like, well, do I just sell out now? But equally, I can only sell so much because the bank will only take 50% of the shares as well. So that's something to bear in mind. So there's a few caps and restrictions on this. So it's not as flexible with the in and out and the dipping with the shares there. But there is the options to sell out and hand that company to someone else. So that is nice. So you have to be mindful of, you know, how much ownership your opponents are. And I think as a house rule, I'd probably play 60% ownership here. Equally, you have to bear in mind when you sell shares, they all go to the bank there. So once the companies run out, you know, you're not buying them from there, and just be mindful of the fixed price. So you're paying whatever the value is there, but only the money from where the starting colour is goes into the actual company there. So lots to like. Hopefully that sort of made sense as to how the game flows. And it's just nice that it's a stock market game which isn't as flux and flow as most. It's obviously a bit heavier than most, and it's not, you know, Rhizomatics is not random stuff happening. You're not randomly distributing dice and what have you. And that's what really I think is special in this game, is that you're participating in the development of it. You're negotiating and bidding for these factories, and who doesn't like looking at these? You know, very similar artwork, but it's all about which resources you're going to get into. And then you have the control over, you know, how many resources I'm going to buy, which type of resource I'm getting into, and you're battling and jostling with your opponents to get there first. And it's always a fascinating aspect, the timing and the order in this game. And it reminds me a bit of something like City of Big Shoulders, where you're not only just talking about the share values and just getting sales, you're involved in the process of developing that network, that company. And I like that. It just offers a little bit more. And it's more engaging than I think 18xx, with the sense it's just trains and you're running the lines, and you know, it's just tokens. You're not really involved in the resource management. This is actually a Euro game, an economic game with shares bolted on. And to have all the different maps that are applicable to this, I've just recently ordered this one as well, and it is the Middle East and South Africa, which I'm buzzed to give a go, because where is the home of, you know, oil and gas in the world? Well, around the Middle East, and you know, obviously America's got a lot going on at the moment as well. But yes, all the different maps will work with this, and I wish more games had this aspect of bolting on, you know, some kind of stock related theme to some of these great economic games out there. Could you imagine something like Food Chain Magnate with stocks added on, and you're investing in these companies? I think things like that would work so well, where you can dip in and out of the companies. So yes, lots to like. I think if you like Power Grid, this is a must. You must give it a go. If you didn't find Power Grid that enthralling, but you like stock shares type games, I have come round again to Power Grid. It's one of my absolute favourite games now with this expansion. I would not go back to the original. So yes, give it a go. Enjoy.